My name is Martin. I'm 34 years old now. But this story begins when I was 28. Telling this story isn't easy because it covers the darkest period of my life, the greatest betrayal I ever experienced, and the justice I finally obtained. But it's time. Because sometimes justice isn't served in courtrooms. Sometimes you have to serve it yourself. Early 2015. My life was perfect. I was a senior software developer at a successful tech company in downtown Chicago, making $85,000 a year. Good money back then. I had a nice apartment in Lincoln Park, a decent car, and most importantly, the people I loved. Emma Collins. We'd been together since college, 6 years total. She was 26, with long auburn hair, green eyes, and intelligence that matched her beauty. She was a graphic designer, working freelance from our shared apartment. We were planning to get married. I'd even started looking at rings. And Jake Morrison. My best friend since childhood. We'd grown up on the same street in a small town outside Detroit, went to the same schools, shared everything. He was 29, a year older than me. He worked as a project manager for a construction company. Jake was like a brother to me. I trusted him with my life. I shared my secrets with him, told him my problems. He did the same with me, or so I thought. The three of us were incredibly close. Emma and Jake got along great too. We'd spend weekends together, movies, dinners, and sometimes we'd escape to Jake's cabin in Michigan. Jake's girlfriend at the time was Sarah Chen. She was 24, a psychology graduate who'd just started working at a mental health clinic. Quiet, reserved type. She and Jake had been together for about 8 months. To be honest, Sarah wasn't very social. When we guys talked sports, she'd read a book. When we drank beer, she'd sip tea. Emma tried to connect with her, but Sarah always kept her distance. To be honest, Sarah wasn't very social. When we guys talked sports, she'd read a book. When we drank beer, she'd sip tea. Emma tried to connect with her, but Sarah always kept her distance. That girl's a bit odd, Emma would say sometimes. Always watching everyone, like she's studying us. Jake was smitten with Sarah though. She's different, he'd say. Not shallow like other girls. She thinks deep. Life was beautiful. Work was going well. Emma and I were happy. We had a great friend group. We'd work during the week and have fun on weekends. Sometimes we'd escape to the Michigan cabin. The last time we were all there together was November 1st, 2015. It was a Saturday. Me, Emma, Jake, and Sarah. A normal weekend. We grilled, drank, talked. Everyone seemed quieter than usual that day. There was tension in the air, but I couldn't understand why. Emma seemed a bit on edge. I have a headache, she said that evening. Let's head back early, Jake agreed. I'm tired anyway. Around 10 p.m., Emma and Jake drove back to Chicago. Sarah and I stayed. Sarah had said I should go too, but Jake told her, you stay, chat with Martin. I'll come back tomorrow. It seemed strange at the time. Why would he leave his girlfriend behind? When Sarah and I were alone, we talked. For the first time, she opened up to me. Martin, she said, I need to tell you something. But, what is it, Sarah? No, I can't. It wouldn't be good for you. What do you mean? After a long silence, she asked, haven't you ever wondered about those jokes between Jake and Emma? Those looks they shared. My heart started racing. What looks? Never mind, she said. I'm probably wrong. I'm thinking crazy things because I've been drinking. But I couldn't sleep that night. Sarah's words kept haunting me. Was there something between Emma and Jake? Impossible. I'd known Emma for 6 years, Jake since childhood. The next morning, Sarah acted normal. Forget what I said yesterday, she told me. I was talking nonsense. But on November 15th, everything changed forever. Someone knocked on my door. Who could it be at this hour? When I opened it, I saw 2 police officers. Martin Thompson. Yes, that's me. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. The world collapsed around me. What murder? I didn't kill anyone. Sarah Chin's death. Please come with us. Sarah was dead. When? How? They took me to the police station. The prosecutor called me for questioning. The prosecutor, a stern man named Detective Rodriguez, spoke in a cold voice. Sarah Chen was found dead this afternoon at the cabin in Michigan. Blunt force trauma to the head. You were there with her last night, weren't you? Yes, I was there, but ... You were alone with Sarah, weren't you? Yes, but I didn't kill her. She left safely in the morning. What time did she leave? Around 10 a.m., she called a taxi and left. Which taxi company? I don't know, she called herself. When did you return to Chicago? Around noon. I drove my own car. The prosecutor looked at his file. Sarah's body was found at 2 p.m. Time of death determined by forensics to be between 8 and 10 a.m. My blood ran cold. I had seen Sarah leave safely at 10 a.m., but if her body was found in the afternoon, that's impossible, I said. I saw her leave alive. But the look in the prosecutor's eyes had changed. He didn't believe me. The next morning, my lawyer arrived. David Walsh, an older criminal defense attorney. He was a friend of my father's. Martin, this looks very bad, he said. The evidence points to you. What evidence? Sarah's DNA is under your fingernails. Your fingerprints are at the scene. And ... double quotes. He paused. And what? Jake Morrison and Emma Collins have given statements. Both say you argued with Sarah that night and threatened her. My vision went dark. What? Jake said this. Martin had been acting strange lately. He had a weird fixation on Sarah. That night he drank too much and argued with her. Emma and I felt uncomfortable and left early. We left Martin alone there with Sarah. I couldn't breathe. What about Emma? Emma said similar things. She claims you were obsessed with Sarah, and that night you told her that girl is trying to come between us. I'll handle her. These are lies. All lies. But I could see from my lawyer's expression that the evidence pointed to me, and my two closest people were accusing me. The trial began 3 months later, February 2016, Cook County Criminal Court. When I entered the courtroom, the first thing I saw was Sarah's family, her parents, her brother. They all looked at me with rage. They saw me as their daughter's killer. The prosecutor read the indictment. The defendant, Martin Thompson, on the night of November 15, 2015, at a cabin in Michigan, murdered Sarah Chen by striking her in the head with a blunt object after emotional conflicts between them had escalated. My head spun. Emotional conflicts. What did that mean? I'd never had any emotional conflicts with Sarah. The first witness was Jake, my best friend. He swore in and sat in the witness chair. He wouldn't look at me. The prosecutor asked, "How long have you known the defendant, Martin Thompson?" "Since childhood. We've been friends for 25 years. What happened on the night of November 15th at the cabin?" Jake took a deep breath. "We were all at the cabin that night. Martin, Emma, myself, and my girlfriend Sarah. Martin drank a lot that night. He was acting strange towards Sarah." "What kind of strange behavior?" "He kept staring at her, trying to make conversation. Sarah was uncomfortable. Then an argument broke out between them." "What was the argument about?" "Martin told Sarah things like, 'What are you doing here? You're ruining our group.' Sarah started crying. I intervened. Lies. All lies." But Jake sounded very convincing, as if it had really happened. "What happened next?" "Emma was upset. She said, 'Let's get out of here.' I agreed. Around 10 p.m., Emma and I drove back to Chicago. What did Martin do? He wanted to stay. He said, 'I'll come back tomorrow.' Sarah stayed too." "Why did you leave Sarah alone?" Martin said, "I'll look after her. Let her calm down." I thought he was being considerate. I had no idea how wrong I was. My lawyer objected. "Your Honor, the witness is speculating." Judge. Objection sustained. The witness should only testify to what he observed, but the damage was done. The jury members' looks toward me had changed. The prosecutor continued. How had Martin's behavior towards Sarah been previously? He'd been different recently. He had a strange tone when talking about Sarah. I'd heard him say things to Emma like, "This girl is interfering with our group." Completely false. Nothing like that had ever happened. During cross-examination, my lawyer asked, "In your 25-year friendship with Martin, did you ever observe him to have violent tendencies?" "No, but did Martin really drink heavily that night?" "Yes, more than usual." "Why did you and Emma really leave that night?" Jake hesitated slightly. Emma was uncomfortable. "Was there any other reason?" "No." But this hesitation caught my lawyer's attention. Jake was hiding something. The second witness was Emma. When I saw her, my heart shattered. My girlfriend of 6 years, the woman I'd planned to marry. She sat in the witness chair and never looked at me. "Prosecutor, how long have you been with the defendant?" "We've been together for 6 years. We live together." Her voice was trembling. "How would you characterize Martin's behavior toward Sarah Chen?" "No." But this hesitation caught my lawyer's attention. Jake was hiding something. The second witness was Emma. When I saw her, my heart shattered. My girlfriend of 6 years, the woman I'd planned to marry. She sat in the witness chair and never looked at me. "Prosecutor, how long have you been with the defendant?" "We've been together for 6 years. We live together." Her voice was trembling. "How would you characterize Martin's behavior toward Sarah Chen?" Emma started crying. Martin had changed a lot recently. He was angry, aggressive. He constantly complained about Sarah. "What kind of complaints?" "He'd say things like this: 'Girl is watching us. She's interfering. She's turning Jake against us.'" This was also a lie. I'd never said such things. "What did he tell you that night?" "After he argued with Sarah, he turned to me and said, 'That girl is trying to break us up. I'll handle her.'" I was so scared. The jury members were devouring me with their eyes. They looked at me as if they were seeing a killer. "Why did you leave early?" Martin's state at that moment scared me. I told Jake, "Let's go." He agreed. During cross-examination, my lawyer asked, "Did Martin ever use physical violence against you?" "No." "But, in your 6-year relationship, did you ever see him as someone with violent tendencies?" "No, but he'd changed in recent months." "Do you have any idea what caused this change?" "I don't know, but there was something in Emma's eyes. A secret." "What was she hiding?" The third witness was Police Detective Johnson from the department. He explained the technical evidence. DNA belonging to Martin Thompson was found under Sarah Chen's fingernails. The defendant's fingerprints were also found at the scene. How might this DNA have gotten there? "The victim must have scratched her attacker while trying to defend herself," my lawyer asked. "Detective Johnson, is there a possibility this DNA was there from before?" The defendant had been at that house previously. The DNA under the fingernails appeared fresh, but it's difficult to give a precise date. Does the same apply to the fingerprints? Yes. The fingerprints could have been left earlier. This was a good point, but the jury didn't seem convinced. The fourth witness was Dr. Patricia Williams from forensics. Sarah Chen was killed by blunt force trauma to the head. Time of death was between 8 and 10 a.m. on November 15th. Was the weapon used identified? Most likely a rock. A bloody rock was found at the scene. Was there other DNA on this rock? Only the victim's blood was present. Strange. If I had killed her with that rock, my DNA should have been on it too. The fifth witness was someone I didn't expect. A taxi driver named Tom Garcia. On the morning of November 15th, I picked up Emma from the cabin. It was around 9:30 a.m. What was Emma doing at the cabin at 9:30 a.m.? Hadn't they said they returned at 10 p.m. the night before? The prosecutor seemed surprised. Are you certain? Yes, very certain, because she was very agitated. She kept saying, please, hurry, this was very important. Emma had been there in the morning. My lawyer immediately asked, what was Emma's condition at that time? Very agitated, seemed scared, her hands were shaking. Was anyone else there? No, she was alone. This testimony changed everything. Emma had been there in the morning, was agitated, seemed scared. The prosecutor requested a recess. I thought he would probably question Emma again, but it didn't happen. In the next hearing, Emma said the taxi driver is mistaken. I wasn't there that morning. The taxi driver insisted. I'm sure it was her. The jury didn't know who to believe. After a 6-month trial, the verdict came. Guilty. The judge read the decision. The defendant, Martin Thompson, murdered Sarah Chen on November 15, 2015, under Illinois Criminal Code Section 921. He is sentenced to 25 years in prison. 25 years. 25 years of my life. Sarah's family was crying with joy. Emma was also crying, but I couldn't tell if it was from joy or sadness. Jake, Jake hadn't looked at me once throughout the entire trial. My lawyer said we would appeal, but he wasn't very hopeful. Stateville Correctional Center, September 17, 2016. My prison life began. The first days were hell. You get the killer label. Other inmates either fear you or try to test you. My cellmate was Roberto, a 55-year-old serving time for fraud. Kid, he said on the first day, if you want to survive here, you need to learn 3 things. Show respect, mind your own business, look strong. For the first 6 months, I thought about suicide many times. My life had been stolen, the people I loved had betrayed me. What was the point of living? But then anger took over. I made a promise to myself. I would get out of here and learn the truth. From the 7th month on, I started reading law books in the prison library. I read 6 to 8 hours every day. Criminal law, appeal procedures, evidence collection methods. What are you doing, kid? Roberto had asked. Learning to defend myself. In prison, we had the right to write letters. Every week, I wrote to my family and my lawyer. I would request my case files, research missing points. At the end of 2017, I noticed something important. The detailed statement from taxi driver Tom Garcia was missing. He had said he picked up Emma from the cabin that morning, but the details of this statement weren't in the records. I wrote to my lawyer, David Walsh. Find this taxi driver, get a detailed statement, but David was old and not very energetic. Martin, the appeal was denied. There's nothing more we can do, he would write. That's when I realized I would have to do this myself. At the beginning of 2018, I started making new friends in prison, especially Carlos, who was serving time for computer crimes. He was a hacker before prison, very skilled with technology. Martin, he said one day, you say you're innocent. If that's true, then someone framed you. Who benefits from you being here? Good question. Who benefited from my imprisonment? Think about it, Carlos continued. Your best friend and girlfriend both testified against you. What if they had reasons to want you gone? I started thinking differently. What if Jake and Emma had been having an affair? What if Sarah had found out and threatened to tell me? I need to investigate this, I told Carlos. From here, I have some money saved. My family can help. We need to hire a private investigator. It took me 6 months to convince my parents to hire a private investigator. They thought I was in denial, but finally agreed. The investigator I hired was a former detective named Marcus Reed. Experienced, thorough, and most importantly, he believed innocence until proven guilty. In his first report, Marcus brought me shocking information. Jake and Emma's relationship had started 8 months before my arrest. They had been having an affair behind my back, but the real bombshell was different. Sarah had known about their relationship and was preparing to warn me. She had had a big fight with Jake that night. Sarah had told him she would tell me everything the next day. Then she died. Marcus dug deeper. On Sarah's phone, there were photos taken that night, photos the police had deemed unimportant. These photos showed Jake and Emma kissing. And there was a witness that Jake had left the cabin with someone else that night, but this witness hadn't testified in court. After 2 years in prison, Marcus came to visit me with a thick file. Martin, I found something big. He had found the witness who saw Jake leave the cabin that night. A night security guard at a nearby resort had seen Jake's car leave around 2 a.m. with 2 people inside, but Jake said he left at 10 p.m. with Emma. I said, exactly. That means he came back. Marcus had also found something else. Sarah's phone records showed she had been on a call until 1:47 a.m. that night. She was talking to her sister in California. Her sister says Sarah was crying, saying she was scared, that she had evidence of something bad and was going to expose it the next day. The pieces were falling into place. Sarah had evidence of Jake and Emma's affair. She was going to tell me. Jake couldn't let that happen. There's more, Marcus said. I found the photos Sarah took that night. They're not just of Jake and Emma kissing. There's one photo that shows Jake's face clearly, and the timestamp is 1:52 a.m., 5 minutes after Sarah's last phone call. Where was Emma in all this? In my 3rd year in prison, Marcus made the breakthrough we needed. He found Jake's college roommate, Mike Stevens. Mike came to visit me in prison with a story that changed everything. Martin, what they did to you was wrong. Jake came to my house that night covered in blood. He told me Sarah and I fought. It was an accident. I stayed quiet because he was my friend. But I can't live with the guilt anymore. Mike agreed to testify. He told me that Jake had said to him that night, Sarah's dead, but Martin was there. It'll fall on him. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Sarah's sister in California had recorded their last phone conversation. She did it because Sarah had been so upset lately, and she wanted to play it back to understand what was wrong. In that recording, you could hear Sarah saying, Jake and Emma have been lying to Martin for months. I have photos. I have evidence. I'm going to tell him tomorrow. Wait, I hear a car. Jake's back. He said he was going to Chicago. Why is he here? Lisa, I'm scared. If something happens to me, remember what I told you about Jake and Emma. Then the line went dead. With this new evidence, we filed for a new trial. It took 2 years of legal battles, but finally, in 2021, after serving 5 years in prison, I was granted a new trial. The second trial was different. This time, I had real evidence. Mike Stevens testified about Jake's confession. Sarah's sister played the recorded phone call. The security guard testified about seeing Jake return to the cabin at 2 a.m. Most damning of all, forensic analysis of the photos on Sarah's phone showed that the timestamp couldn't be faked. Jake was definitely at the cabin when Sarah died. The taxi driver who had picked up Emma was found again. This time he brought his logbook, which showed exactly when and where he had picked her up. 9:33 a.m. from the cabin. Emma had lied on the witness stand. During the new trial, both Jake and Emma were called as witnesses again. This time, under oath, with new evidence confronting them, their stories fell apart. Jake kept changing his testimony. First he said he never returned to the cabin. Then, when confronted with the security footage, he said he might have forgotten about going back. Emma broke down completely. Under aggressive cross-examination by my new lawyer, a brilliant young attorney named Sarah Michelle, ironic name. Given the circumstances, Emma finally admitted to lying. We were scared, Emma sobbed on the witness stand. Jake said, if we told the truth, we'd both go to prison. He said it was an accident. That Sarah fell and hit her head during an argument? What was the argument about? Sarah Michelle asked. Sarah threatened to tell Martin about our affair. Jake got angry. They struggled. She fell and hit her head on the rock, and you helped cover it up. Jake said, we had to make it look like Martin did it. He said Martin's fingerprints and DNA were already there from previous visits. We planted more evidence. The courtroom was silent. After 6 years, the truth was finally coming out. On November 15, 2021, exactly 6 years after Sarah's murder, the verdict came, Martin Thompson, not guilty. All charges dropped. Jake Morrison, guilty of murder in the 2nd degree, evidence tampering, perjury, sentenced to 30 years in prison. Emma Collins, guilty of accessory to murder, perjury, evidence tampering, sentenced to 15 years in prison. As the judge read the verdicts, I felt a mixture of emotions. Relief, vindication, but also profound sadness. 6 years of my life were gone forever. Sarah was still dead, and the 2 people I had loved most in the world had destroyed not only my life but their own. Jake finally looked at me as they led him away in handcuffs. There were tears in his eyes, but I felt nothing for him anymore. Emma tried to speak to me as she was led past. Martin, I'm so sorry. I turned away. Some betrayals are unforgivable. Walking out of that courtroom as a free man after 6 years was surreal. The world had changed. Smartphones were everywhere. Social media had evolved. New technologies I'd never seen. But I was determined to rebuild my life. The state of Illinois eventually paid me $2.3 million in compensation for wrongful imprisonment. It doesn't buy back 6 years, but it was enough to start over. I moved to a small town in Colorado, far from Chicago and the memories. I started a small software consulting business. Technology had advanced, but my fundamental skills were still solid. More importantly, I met someone. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Walsh, no relation to my old lawyer. She's a therapist who specializes in helping people who've experienced trauma. She knew my story when we met. It had been in the news, but she saw past the headlines to the person I really was. We married 2 years ago. We have a quiet life, which is exactly what I want. You might think this story ends with my release from prison and Jake and Emma going to jail, but there's more. See, Prison taught me patience. It taught me that the best revenge isn't quick or hot, it's slow and cold. While I was rebuilding my life in Colorado, I kept tabs on Jake and Emma through public records. Jake was serving his time in the same prison where I'd been held. Ironic. Justice. Emma was in a women's facility downstate. According to my sources, some of the contacts I'd made in prison, neither was having an easy time. They were marked as snitches, prisoners who had betrayed someone who trusted them. That doesn't play well behind bars. But I wanted more than just their imprisonment. I wanted their complete downfall. Using some of the compensation money, I hired investigators to dig into their past business dealings. What we found was a pattern of fraud and embezzlement dating back years. Jake's construction company had been overbilling clients and using substandard materials. 3 buildings he'd worked on had serious structural problems. One had partially collapsed, injuring several people. With Jake in prison and unable to cover it up anymore, lawsuits started flying. Emma's design business had been stealing intellectual property from other designers and passing it off as original work. With her credibility destroyed by the murder trial, her former clients started looking closely at their contracts. Copyright lawsuits followed. By the time they both get out of prison, they'll face millions in civil judgments. Their assets have been seized, their reputations destroyed. But the most satisfying revenge was simpler than that. Sarah's family, who had hated me for 6 years, publicly apologized after the truth came out. They started a foundation in Sarah's name for wrongfully convicted prisoners. The prosecutor who had been so eager to convict me was censured by the state bar and eventually resigned in disgrace. And my original lawyer, David Walsh, who had given up on my case, publicly admitted his mistakes and helped fund legal defense for other wrongfully convicted prisoners. There's one more piece to this story that I haven't shared until now. About a year after my release, I received a letter in prison from someone unexpected, Sarah's roommate from college, a woman named Lisa Kim. Lisa told me that Sarah had confided in her about Jake and Emma's affair months before the murder. But more than that, Sarah had been keeping a detailed diary of everything she observed. This diary, which had been in Sarah's things when she died, had somehow been lost by the police. But Lisa had copies of some pages that Sarah had texted her. In these diary entries, Sarah wrote about how guilty she felt keeping the secret from me. She also wrote about how Jake had been pressuring her to keep quiet, and how that pressure had been escalating. The final entry, dated November 14th, the day before she died, was chilling. Jake cornered me today. He knows I'm going to tell Martin everything tomorrow. He said if I ruin his relationship with Emma, he'll make me pay. He looked scary when he said it. I'm not sure this was really an accident anymore. I think he meant to hurt me. I think he planned it. This diary entry proved what I had suspected all along, that Sarah's murder was premeditated, not a crime of passion. Jake had planned to kill her to keep his secret safe. I turned this evidence over to the prosecutors. Jake's sentence was increased to life without parole. Today, I'm sitting on my deck in Colorado, watching the sunset over the mountains. Jennifer is inside, making dinner. We're expecting our first child next month. 6 years ago, I was an innocent man wrongly convicted of murder. 2 years ago, I was an ex-convict trying to rebuild his life. Today, I'm a husband, a soon-to-be father, and a successful business owner. Jake Morrison is serving life in prison. He'll die there. Emma Collins was released last year after serving 8 years, but she's a broken woman. No job, no friends, no family who will speak to her. She lives in a tiny apartment and works at a grocery store. Sometimes I wonder if freedom is really better than prison for her. The girl who once meant everything to me is now just a ghost from my past. People sometimes ask me if I'm angry about the 6 years I lost. The truth is, I'm not. Those years taught me who I really am. They taught me the value of real friendship, real love, real justice. They taught me that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the foundation for the best things in your life. Sarah Chen died because she was going to tell the truth. In the end, the truth did come out. Just 6 years too late for her, and 6 years too late for the life I thought I wanted. But maybe that life wasn't as perfect as I thought. Maybe I needed to lose everything to find what really mattered. Justice came slowly, but it came completely. And sometimes, that's the best revenge of all. The truth always surfaces. Always. If you're listening to this story and you're going through something similar, if you've been betrayed, if you've been wrongly accused, if the system has failed you, don't give up. Document everything. Trust no one completely. And remember that the people who are quickest to betray you are often the ones closest to you. But also remember that not everyone is like Jake and Emma. There are good people in the world. People like Jennifer, like Marcus Reed, the investigator, like the lawyer Sarah Michelle who fought for me when no one else would. Find those people, hold on to them, and never, ever stop fighting for the truth. Because in the end, the truth is the only thing that really matters. That's my story. 6 years in hell, followed by 8 years rebuilding heaven, and I wouldn't change a single day of it. The end.